Hello and welcome to another Magic the Gathering video. So I figured it's about time we do another Box Store Commander Challenge episode. So we're now on to episode 6, and over the series of episodes we've sort of been moving from product where we know the contents of. So initially we were looking at the actual Commander decks themselves, and then we sort of moved into the area of dual decks and then into things like intro packs. And obviously as we get into intro packs there is a degree of the unknown in the fact we're getting boosters. And the last episode, I think it was episode 5, we looked at the whole issue of intro pack evaluation, and basically we went through with a couple of boosters and we pulled out all the stuff that was commander friendly. Once again, because I'm doing this sort of on camera, and also because my commander skills are sort of in terms of evaluation are sort of under development, I'm using my trusty cheat sheets, which just allow me to easily pick out commander friendly cards as we go along. And I think on the previous episode I actually mentioned how I put those together. So I thought it'd be good to turn our attention now onto much more random product. So really we're getting into the area now with box store product where it's basically just luck whether you pull anything. But I figured, if you think the ultimate conclusion, or the ultimate, I suppose, place we're going to get with this is we will be cracking at some point a whole load of boosters. And I suspect, based on various evaluations, that's more than likely going to be 2015, because there are just so many strong commander cards in that particular set that I feel it's only right to basically crack something like a fat pack, or it's certainly a, you know, at least sort of, I don't know, something in the region of 8 to 10 packs, just so we can get some feel for what we might get out of doing that. But on our way to doing that, I thought it'd be good to look at something that is really a phenomenon of Walmart, which is these sort of 3 booster packs and a promo card type thing. We're also going to just talk a little bit about card deck, card sleeves. That's the word I'm looking for. But first up, these booster pack, blister packs. I have done videos about these before, just basically to show everybody what's in them. But just to reiterate, these things basically have 3 boosters in them plus some sort of premium foil. They normally sit on the shelves for quite a while, and these premium foils aren't usually that too expensive to buy as singles if you're able to track them down. There's been, I think, one exception to that, because the particular card was in heavy use in a particular deck that was the card was legal in standard at the point they released it. So I think that one flew off the shelves because people were buying multiple copies. These ones, the 2 in front of me here, this is the blister pack that Walmart do. Both of these are in Canada are $14.92 basically for these packs. That's before tax. So this one here, you can actually see the boosters you're getting, obviously in addition to the foil. In these ones, which they've gone back to, I think, and this are very much in the old style, where you couldn't actually see what boosters you were getting. And I've heard stories and seen people open them online where they pulled like really odd boosters from older packs, which is, you know, pretty exciting if you like those sort of older Magic cards. Once you get used to sort of seeing Magic boosters, you can sort of draw conclusions about what these might be. And we can sort of look at this and go, okay, well, we've got Dragon's Maze, Gatecrash, Ravnica here. So this is from the Ravnica block. This one this was bought after this. This one here, I can definitely see that this is probably a Dragon's Maze pack here. Now these two, we've got a green and a red one. Now this could be a Gatecrash, but Theros boosters were green, and I believe Born of the God boosters are red. So that's quite possible. Dragon's Maze, Theros, and Born of the Gods, but it could be Gatecrash, or it could be another pack which had red booster packs, basically. So like I said, they're $14.92. The other thing, while we're just talking about stuff that's available, and just to cover this, got to do it in some video. One of the things I've always found difficult to track down in box stores is actually card sleeves, card protectors. So when I was in there a little while ago, I noticed they did have some of these. These came out, I think, just after or around the core set. That's when they first started appearing. They've got the sort of Garrick, that particular Garrick, the Garrick that kills other planeswalkers. And these particular ones are Magic the Gathering branded Ultra Pro. Unfortunately, this is about as good as you're going to get at a box store. I've certainly never seen at my local Walmart or Target any Dragon Shields or KMC mats, anything like that. So this is about as good as it gets. You're probably going to stumble across stuff like Yu-Gi-Oh sleeves as well, or some other sort of nondescript stuff. But that's about it. I think I have seen Ultra Pro deck boxes which actually have the ones where you get the sleeves with them as well. I've seen some of those, but generally there's not much choice, and these come in packs of 80. They're $11.92 each, so you don't get a particularly good deal on these. I suspect if you went to a card, an actual comic or card store, these are going to probably cost you about $6 maybe. Although I think these branded ones tend to be slightly more expensive. But certainly, you can go to a gaming store and pick up, Dragon Shields and KMC sleeves in Canada for around about sort of $11. So, but as the series is focusing on what you can get at the box stores, then obviously that particular conversation had to come up. So anyway, there, I'll put those two on the side. But yeah, that's what I was able to track down. So I now have some sleeves for any particular commander deck that I might put together from the little toolkit stroke collection that I'm building up over the course of the videos. Okay, so let's actually get and crack these. So we'll start off with this particular one. So we'll open these, have a look at the foil that we get in here. It's fun to try and open these. I can see why they probably abandoned this packaging, because it's a hell of a lot more complicated. Okay, we're going to get to crack some packs. Right, so we have a nice, very shiny, foily Hamlet back Goliath. 6 and a red for a 6/6 creature giant warrior. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may put X +1/+1 counters on Hamlet back Goliath, where X is that creature's power. So this is 6 and a red, so it's obviously high mana cost, although high mana cost cards aren't always a particular problem in EDH Commander. But what's interesting about this is obviously when you've got in a multiplayer game and other people are playing creatures, because of the wording on its ability, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, this is going to get big fairly quickly if lots of people are playing lots of creatures. And notice it's sort of each of those other creatures. So if someone was sort of putting, dumping lots of creatures in play on their turn, then this is obviously going to trigger. So you can see why that would be really, really, a very good card in a deck that plays red in EDH. Okay, so we'll crack these open, and I'm going to try and do card evaluations as I go along, so you have to bear with me if I have a brain fart at certain points. This is quite difficult to do on camera. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll just go through these, and then off camera I'll put them into piles, and then from that, we'll, at the very end, once we've opened the other pack, we'll just go back through and just have a look at what we've got. So this is Deviant Glee. This is Enchantment or Enchants Creature. Notice that this particular card, it's a black card, but the actual activation cost, actually no, sorry, scrap that. I made a mistake already. Yeah, so here it says enchanted creature gets +2/+1 and has red. This creature gains trample until end of turn. So there is an activation on here which is inside of that particular enchantment itself. So whatever creature you enchant gets +2/+1 and has this activation ability of this creature gains trample until end of turn, which costs red basically. So it's good to note that it's actually different from its black casting cost. So basically Deviant Glee is not a particularly good card in EDH, mainly because it's not, good cards in EDH tend to be, because you have to think from a multiplayer perspective. So when you've got a card that does a single thing on a single card, unless it's the removal of something really scary, they tend not to be very good in EDH. And there's a few exceptions to that, but just have to watch out for those. So let's go in my don't want to play pile. Avenging Arrow. So with Avenging Arrow, it's an instant, destroy target creature that dealt damage this turn. So it is removal, and removal can be quite handy when it's removal that isn't dependent on a card being a certain creature type or colour, or what's the other word I'm looking for, where it's not really, there's not too many caveats. The caveat on this is that the destroy target creature, it has to be creature that dealt damage this turn basically. So this is going to be good in a certain type of deck where you might want to take out a threat that was basically dealing you damage. So a good example was, supposing you're playing a white deck and your opponent was playing a particularly scary commander that was about to deal you damage, or was dealing is dealing damage, and that commander had become pumped, and there was a good chance with that doing damage over and over again, you're going to get commander damage. You could destroy that creature. Now with a commander, of course, it's going to end up back, it's not going to necessarily go to the graveyard unless the player that's playing that commander wants that to happen, but it does mean that the player that played it is going to have to recast that at a higher commander cost because it's a commander. But equally, it could be used for any scary creature. So it would have its place, but only in it might get played in certain situations in a white deck. But there's a lot better removal or ways of dealing with threats in white than Avenging Arrow. But if that's all you've got to play with, then that might be of use. Terrace Worm. So this is in black, and this is a 6 and a black 5/5 with scavenge for 6 and a black. So with scavenge on it for 6 and a black, exile this creature from your graveyard. Put a number of +1/+1 counters equal to this card's power on target creature. There's another one of these cards that might possibly get played somewhere. But again, you could argue there are better 5/5s for 7 in black, which have a more scalable and a more EDH friendly ability on them. Although you could argue that just looking at this card's power, so it's going to basically put, for the cost of a 6 and a black, it's going to put 5 +1/+1 counters on something else. So that's the key thing, is really the costs here for what you're getting. Chorus of Might, 3 and a green. So with Chorus of Might, until end of turn, target creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control and gains trample. So in a creature heavy deck, that's going to be a useful card to play. Again, it just basically targets a single creature, but that could be useful if that particular creature was, say, a commander, and you were trying to sort of rack up that commander damage. So that probably you're going to want to certainly consider playing that in a green deck where you've got a lot of creatures. Sundering Growth. So Sundering Growth is this sort of hybrid mana. So it's green-white, a green-white. And it's an instant, destroy target artifact or enchantment, then populate. So with populate, you put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of a creature token you control. So this particular one, so you're thinking about, well, we've got the fact that we're going to populate. So this is going to be at home in basically a creature token deck. Okay, because with populate, it's only based on tokens that you actually have in play. And so again, it's another good EDH card. It's not going to be at home in every EDH deck, but certainly basically token based decks where you will also want to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. Now remember, to play this you've got to have a target to do that too. To be able to want to do that to something, so your opponent. But there's obviously a lot of popular artifacts in Commander that get played over and over again, so it would be unusual not to have an artifact or enchantment to actually target with that. Augur Spree. So Augur Spree's 1 black-red for an instant. Target creature gets +4/-4 until end of turn. So there's a couple of ways you can use this, but obviously with -4 toughness, it's going to basically act as removal on any creature that has 4 or less power. Also, it can take a creature which has more than 4 power and make it lopsided, give it more did I say power? I meant toughness. So key thing is it's going to remove something with 4 or less toughness, but if you've got something with more than 4 toughness, then what it could do is obviously pump that creature, make it lopsided, but it would certainly pump up its power. So that's the second way in which it could be used. But again, it's a single hit. These sort of single hit pump spells are not good in EDH. So another one there that will go on the not good pile. Towering Indrik, 3 and a green. So this is a creature beast with reach on it, and it's a 2/4 with reach. So this is going to deal with flying creatures, and it's not a very good card in EDH at all. Stealer of Secrets, 2 and a blue for a human rogue, 2/2. Whenever Stealer of Secrets deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So we've got card draw here, but it's dependent on you doing combat damage to an actual player. That's combat getting through on there. So with Stealer of Secrets, you could play it. It's a sort of card you would want out relatively early in a game, but unfortunately in a 100 card deck, what are the chances of that actually happening? But it does have this sort of useful ability, so it's one of these things that might get played somewhere if you didn't have a better card at your disposal, but not that strong. Grim Roustabout. So Grim Roustabout, 1 and a black for creature skeleton warrior. It's 1/1. It's got Unleash on it, so you can have the creature enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. It can't block as long as it has +1/+1 counters on it, so it makes it a 2/2, but you just can't block with it. And for 1 and a black, regenerate Grim Roustabout. So this particular one, again, you could stick it in an EDH deck. Maybe you want to play around with counters. It does have regenerate on it, so it's going to come back. So it's pretty persistent, but it's another one of these. Well, yeah, it could get played somewhere, but it's not a sort of not a first pick for that sort of thing. The guild gates, these guild gates, these Azorius guild gates, are useful for basically fixing mana. So in this case, we've got Azorius guild gate. Enter battlefield tapped, that's the downside, but we can tap it to add white or blue to your mana pool. And in the absence of other ways of fixing mana for white and blue, these will do the job basically. Fairy Imposter is a single blue for 2/1 flying. It's Fairy Rogue. When Fairy Imposter enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless you return another creature you control to its owner's hand. So you've got a flying 2/1 with this enters the battlefield condition on it. So I don't really think that this is going to actually be of much use. It might be sort of playable in a certain circumstance, but not a really strong card in EDH. One thing you can use it for, it's one of these sort of trick things you can do with it, is you could use it to bounce a creature. So that's where it is useful. In effect, you're getting a 2-for-1 here, where you're bouncing, and it's got to be your own creature. But you may want to bounce a creature out of danger, and your deck, the point I'm making is your deck might be designed around, the theme of it may be playing around with bouncing creatures, so that might be an advantage in that particular deck, but without being in that specific deck, then not a lot of use. Ultimate Price, so 1 and a black for an instant, destroy target monocolor creature. So this particular one, again, we've got an instant. It's going to destroy target monocolor creatures. Well, it's not unusual to see, monocolored EDH decks. Maybe useful, but generally with this, that's within cards like this where it's saying destroy this creature. So I suppose it would be dependent on what your metagame's like, your play group or who you play with. If everybody's playing monocolor decks, then yes, so if everybody's playing a lot of monocolor creatures, then it's good. If people are playing a lot of multicolored stuff, they're not so good. Now you're obviously going to come across a lot of monocolor creature. I think the strength with this card from an EDH perspective is that often there are a lot of very powerful staples in certain colors which are monocolored, and this is a great way of dealing with that. Like supposing you're playing a deck which has black in it, you'd be able to play this, and you've got people that are playing white and they're always playing Sundering Titans, and so that's it. So you might get people that constantly use Titans as staples or certain monocolored creatures as staples in their deck. So this is going to deal with that. So this might be why this particular card is considered a card that could be probably will get played because of that fact that it's good at dealing with a lot of sort of monocolored creature staples that might crop up. But again, you just have to sort of bear that in mind, what your metagame's like. if there's not a lot of mono-coloured creatures around, then there's not a lot of point playing it in a deck where you can play black. Rakdos Ragemut, 3 and 3 black red for 3/3 lifelink haste. So again, another multicoloured card. This thing, it's got lifelink haste, 3/3 4/5. I don't think it's particularly strong, but moving on. So our rare is Hallowed Fountain. So this we can tap to add a white or blue to our mana pool because it's a land, plains, island. As Hallowed Fountain enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 life. If you don't, Hallowed Fountain enters the battlefield tapped. So these particular group of cards, you know, are useful for a number of different reasons. Firstly, they fix for 2 colours, and there was a whole cycle of these in Return to Ravnica. The other thing to bear in mind is notice that they're lands, plains, islands. So if you've only got anything that fetches out for plains or islands, and it specifically says it, then it's going to find this, and you can sort of compare this to the other one we looked at earlier, the other sort of dual colour thing, and I'm trying to find it. I don't know what I did with it. It's in one of these piles. Oh, there we go. The Azorius Guildgate. Oh, that's good. It's in the same colour as well. So with the Azorius Guildgate, that enters the battlefield tapped, although there's no option to pay 2 life to have it not enter the battlefield tapped. But you'll notice this is a land gate, this is a land, plains, island. So with this one, you're going to basically be able, if you've got other cards that particularly reference plains or islands, this is going to be useful for that. But this won't. You can't basically target that. Okay, we have a advert card and a mountain. Okay, so let's move on. It's rather a slow process when you're sort of going through each card individually, trying to summarise these. So we're moving now on to Gate Crash here. So this is Shadow Alley Denizen. This is a creature vampire rogue. It's 1/1. Whenever another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gains Intimidate until end of turn. It can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or creatures that share a colour with it. So not completely useless, but again, it may have a place. It might get played in a certain deck for a certain, you know, certain theme or exploiting a certain thing. But there's there's way better cards that you could find, because don't forget with EDH Commander you can use cards throughout the history of Magic. But again, if we're basing our cards on stuff that we've only got a limited access to, then that might be our only option to achieve that effect in a particular Commander deck that we're trying to put together. Croconura, 2 and a green, it's got reach on it, and it also has an evolve on it. So whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature has greater power or toughness than this creature, put a 1/1 counter on this creature, and it's a 1/3 in green. If you're playing around with an evolved deck, it's a sort of creature. You're dropping it on for 3 mana. It'll deal with flyers. You might want to experiment with it in a particular evolved deck, but beyond that, it's not going to have widespread use, I don't think. Warmind Infantry. So Warmind Infantry, 2 and a red, 2/3 battalion. Whenever Warmind Infantry and at least 2 other creatures attack, Warmind Infantry gets +2/+0 until end of turn. I myself, it's not that particularly a strong card for Commander. Shamble Shark, so this is another one with evolve on it. Green blue with flash, so you can actually cast this anytime you could cast an instant. So flash it in, it's got evolve, so again the evolve will trigger if this so whenever you cast a creature and this is in play, if that creature has greater power and toughness than this creature, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. So same as Croconar, but different power and toughness. This is a 2/1. So of course when you're evaluating these for use in an evolve themed deck, you need to play close consideration to the power and toughness and how they might trigger. Remember, there's a choice with these. It's greater power or toughness. So that's why sometimes in evolve, lopsided creatures are pretty effective in terms of getting stuff to trigger, where you've got a very high power against a low toughness, or vice versa. So this particular one, Shamble Shark, again, it's probably been with Croconura. If you were playing around with trying to build an evolve deck, you might want to consider just trying it out. But beyond that, that's about as good as it gets. Primal Visitation, so 3 red green, enchanted creature gets +3/+3 and has haste. So the good thing about this is the pump that you give the creature is going to stick around. It's not an instant, it's not a sorcery, it's not going to go away. It's an enchantment, it's an aura. You can do certain clever things with certain cards in Magic. Will hunt out specifically auras, and you can do some pretty clever thing with enchantment auras. Now, so this particular one would be, obviously you need to be playing red and green in your commander, and this particular one, again, because it's just targeting one specific creature and it's only 3/3. What you tend to find with auras, they have to be doing something a bit special, and they have to really fit in with a certain thing you're doing. There are certain combos with certain auras as well and other creatures which are sort of key within Commander that you'll stumble across, but this isn't one of those. Burst of Strength. So Burst of Strength is green, put a 1/1 counter on target creature and tap it. So if you're playing around with counters in your deck, in a deck that features green, you might want to try this out, but I'm sure that there's other stronger staples that would be better in that colour. Prophetic Prism. So this is an artifact, so it's always interesting with artifacts to look at these, because they can basically be playable in any colour deck. So 2 colourless. When Prophetic Prism enters the battlefield, draw a card. So you get card draw on that before doing anything. 1 colourless tap, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. So it's going to be sort of mana fixing. There are better mana fixing cards than this one. But in lieu of any of that, then it might be something that you might want to play around with. I mean, the thing about this is what it does is it takes your mana and it filters it. So for a cost of 1 of any colour of mana, you get to turn it into 1 of any other colour, basically. Ores of Guildgate. These enter the battlefield tapped. This generates 4 white and black. So with these Guildgates, again, useful if you don't have anything else in particular that you can use, and it suits your colour combination for your deck. Totally Lost, 4 and a blue. When target a non-land permanent puts target non-land permanent on top of its owner's library, so you're placing the permanent back on the library. Now, with something like Totally Lost, again, it's like a 1-hit card for 4 and a blue. So there are better ways of doing that. Assault Griffin. So Assault Griffin, we've got a 3 and a white for a 3/2 with flying. Pretty basic card there. Not strong in EDH. Boros Charm. So the charms are always interesting. So red and a white, choose 1. Boros Charm deals 4 damage to target player. All permanents you control are indestructible this turn, or target creature gains double strike until end of turn. So you have 3 choices for red and a white that you can do at instant speed. So with that bearing in mind, and the fact that it's got double strike, I find that particularly the double strike concept very attractive in a format where commander damage can make a big difference on there. So for me, that's a real strong card. Murder Investigation, so this is in white. So with Murder Investigation, it's another aura. Enchant creature you control. When enchanted creature dies, put X +1/+1 white soldier creature token onto the battlefield, where X is its power. So yeah, it might be something you want to play and experiment with, but not something that wouldn't just jump to the top of your list. Wasteland Viper. It's green with Death Touch. It's creature snake, 1/2, Blood Rush. For 1 green, discard the Wasteland Viper. Target attacking creature gets +1/+2 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. So Death Touch is always very interesting in Magic, and the sort of Death Touch shenanigans you can get up to can be quite clever. So I again put this on a pile of, you might want to try that out at some point just to play around with, but it's not going to be again a high up your choice of cards maybe to play. Rumble Belt Raiders. So this is 1 colourless, and then we've got 3 lots of red-green hybrid mana. This is our rare. It's a 3/3 creature human warrior. Whenever Rumble Belt Raiders attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each attacking creature you control. So this particular one is, let's think about this. So let's put a 1/1 for each team you control. So the thing with this is you need to decide how big is this going to get, and how quickly is it actually going to get. So this, I think this would take a lot of things to be right to actually work. So it will be another one of these I'd sort of try and see, but I don't think it's gonna make make the cut all the time, or most of the time. As we've got a swamp here and advert card. So we'll move on to the last pack now. So for Phyto Burst, we're now moving on to Dragon's Maze, and this was obviously a smaller set here. So if you're opening multiples of these, you're going to see lots of repeats in the commons, but we're just opening a single pack here. So Phyto Burst, sorcery, 1 green, target creature gets +5/+5 until end of turn. Yeah, those one-hit pump spells aren't always too good in EDH. Has the Snare Squad, 2 and a white, 1/4. When it has the Snare Squad attacks, you may pay 1 white. If you do, tap target creature opponent controls, and that's in white. Yeah, might want to try that in something, but not something that I'd put to the top of the list. Armoured Wolf Rider, 3 in green white for a 4/6. So it's one of the problems in EDH is generally with creatures, you always want some sort of ability on them, so you're going to get 2 for 1, or you're going to get something that you can use again and again and again. Vanilla creatures aren't necessarily too strong. There may be certain instances with something that's really powerful, but generally that's still the case, that it's not something that's really going to be played. Azorius Clue Stones. So the Clue Stones are all very sort of cards that would fit in the particular colour combination. So they give you a bit of a boost, on once you've got 3 mana to play around with. So 3 colourless, tap, add white or blue to your mana pool, and then for white blue you can tap it, sacrifice and draw a card. So you can get rid of it if it's not really useful. Hidden Strings, 1 and a blue sorcery, you may tap or untap target permanent, then you may tap or untap another target permanent. It's got Cipher, so then you may exile this spell card, encode it on a creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may cast a copy of the encoded card without paying its mana cost. So this sort of reusability on a spell makes it very interesting. Within EDH, it's going to be something that you would definitely want to play around with, in something that features blue, and have a go with that one. Selesnya clue stone, so another clue. This is a clue stone for green white. So as I mentioned earlier, they're particularly useful for mana fixing at certain points in the match. Clear a path is a red, and it just destroys target creature with defender. Too specific. Thrashing Moss Dog. So this is in green, and for Thrashing Moss Dog, 3 and a green for 3/3 with reach, and scavenge 4 and 2 green. So we've seen the previous scavenge creature before. I don't think this is strong in EDH. Weapon Surge, red instant, target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. It has overload on it, which again is always very interesting in Commander. So 1 and a red, you may cast this spell for its overload cost. If you do, change its text by placing all instances of target with each. Okay, so this is going to target your own creatures, and if you can play that overload cost, it's going to target all of those creatures, and they're going to gain first strike until end of turn. So within EDH, it's something, you know, it does the deck lend itself well to that sort of combat trick. So that's something you just have to find out by tuning the deck and playing around with it. Zerthar Druid, red-green, 1/1, tap, add green to mana pool. Whenever you tap Zerthar Druid for mana, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. We've spoken about this card before, actually, in a previous video. And yeah, it's a very useful card in very useful mana dork with the ability to ping as well, and it pings each opponent as well whenever you tap. Spike Jester is black-red for 3/1 with haste. It's a creature goblin warrior, and so another multicolored card. This one you might find some use in, you know, maybe a theme deck, or I'm trying to think what you would call it, like tribal perhaps. But again, one of these things that I'm sure there's a use for it somewhere, but not something that you'd jump at playing necessarily in all your EDH decks that have black and red. Putrefy, so 1 black-green for an instant that destroys a target artifact or creature, and that particular artifact or creature cannot be regenerated. So it's always good to see cards that will go beyond the normal just destroying, and also you know, deliver a bit more beyond that. So this particular one that we have here, because of that, you know, the fact that it's destroying artifacts, and there's some pretty sort of important artifacts in Magic, and also the creatures that it destroys, they just can't be regenerated. So for that reason, it is, you know, a strong EDH card. Profit and Loss. So this is one of these cards which has 2 parts to it. So for the profit component, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn, and for the loss part, creatures your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn, and you can fuse these together. So you know, you can actually opt to pay the full cost. So the profit cost is 1 and a white, and the loss cost is 2 and a black. So there's so it's good that you sort of get that utility, and there's a lot of these cards that are in Dragon's Maze. For example, we got Alive and Well Armed and Dangerous, Beck and Call, Breaking, Entering, and with that sort of usefulness, the fact that you've got the 2 parts which you can either play as one or the other or both, and normally they have a very flexible thing on them, and this particular one is obviously at instant speed. That makes them you know, good strong card in certain decks basically. So that's that one there. Notion Thief. So with Notion Thief, this is in blue-black. It's the 3/1. It's the rare in this particular pack. Creature Human Rogue has flash. If an opponent will draw a card except the first one he or she draws in each of his or her draw steps, instead the player skips that draw and you draw a card. Okay. If an opponent will draw a card except the first one he or she draws in each of his or her draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw a card. Okay, so what this does, this basically punishes any player that is doing card draw beyond the first draw of the draw step. And yeah, so that's interesting, and you get the benefit of doing that. So that sort of turns the tables on someone that's using that particular strategy. So not surprisingly, that's a good strong EDH card, because there's quite a lot of people, even if they're not doing card draw as a main strategy, will be utilising card draw to rebalance their hand, or to just basically give them the cards that they're after. So yeah, very useful card from a Commander EDH perspective. Azorus Guildgate, so it's another Guildgate, and we've spoken about these before. They're good for mana fixing. They're so common in this particular block that anybody that has played the Return to Ravnica block and has access cards is probably going to have access to loads of these. Okay, so we're moving on to our next pack. So this is a sort of unknown quantity pack where we know we've got 3 boosters in here. We know which foil we've got. It's on the top. But beyond that, we don't know an awful lot. Okay, so we have Gatecrash. We do have Theros. And we have Dragon's Maze. So I think I thought it was either Dragon's Maze, Gatecrash, or Theros, or Dragon's Maze, Theros, Born of the Gods. But, okay, so it looks like we've got 2 out of the 3 packs we've already opened, plus some Theros here. Okay. So we'll just go through in the order in which they were released originally. Let's have a quick look at this card. So this is the foil, 4 and 2 white for 4/4 flying creature angel. At the beginning of each combat, choose first strike, vigilance, or lifelink. Creatures you control gain the ability to end of turn. So a strong EDH card. You would just have to consider the best synergy that this would be put to use. So you may not just want to stick it in any old Commander EDH deck that plays white, but certainly in a deck where the fact that it's an angel, where it's flying, and it's got this interesting combat ability, is gonna synergize very well with other cards that you're playing. Okay, so moving back to Gatecrash. You can see this being a very long video, so I'll try and attempt to speed up. But like I said, it's pretty difficult when you're trying to do this as you're going along. So I'm moving back now to this one. Right, so we've got Way of the Thief. So I did open. Just check what I just actually opened. What's Gatecrash? Okay, so Way of the Thief is blue, 3 and a blue for enchantment aura, and it says enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2. Enchanted creature is unblockable as long as you control a gate. So there's always a bit of a problem here with these sort of conditional enchantments here, where you've got, in order for this to basically work, you have to have something else working as well. So this puts it in the sort of category of, you might use this in a deck where that ability is possible to trigger, but that beyond that, there's not always an awful lot of use. Kingpin's Pet, looks like we've got a bit of a misprint on this one. The ink's blurring on that. That is genuinely, and if you can see that, the ink's smudged a bit there. That's not the camera. So Kingpin's Pet, 1 colourless, white, black, 2/2, flying extort. Just as an aside, I've seen these in Pauper, in white, black Pauper decks as a popular card. But within EDH, it's interesting to see how it might behave. Like I said, it's got flying and it's got extort on it. So whenever you cast a spell, you may pay white, black. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain that much life. Just as an aside, there's something very interesting about extort triggers. It's not going to be such an issue on this card because the colour up here, white, black, also is reflected down here with the extort cost. Where you get interesting things in Commander is that the colour identity of a card refers to any, it doesn't refer to anything that's within the sort of explanation text here. And you'll notice the extort cost is actually within the explanation of that particular thing. So what I mean by that is, supposing this was a white card that had extort on it, technically you could actually you wouldn't run into any problems because the extort cost is white, black, because that cost is inside of that description, that explanation. So that's why extort can be interesting in Commander, the way that's actually worded. So with Kingpin, another one of these sort of cards where you might want to try it out in a particular white deck that has white and black, just to see how it behaves, but it's not one of the stronger cards in EDH, certainly. Shamble Shark we looked at earlier. This is this green blue 2/1 flash evolved creature, and at the time we came to the conclusion that you might want to play around this in an evolved deck because of the shortage of evolved creatures, but beyond that, not good for other things. Skinbrand, 1 and a red, 2/1 with Blood Rush for red. Discard Skinbrand Goblin. Target attacking creature gets +2/+1 until end of turn. So this particular one, so we've got fairly small creature here, so anything that we would be considering would be sort of based around its particular ability here. Does that ability give us anything useful within Commander when we're considering what route it might go in? And really, no. I mean, not. What we're getting here is we got to discard this guy. We've got to pay red, and our attacking creature gets +2/+1 until end of turn, and not really money well invested on that one. Syndicate Enforcer is in black, so 3 in a black, 3/2 with extort. So it's another extort thing. When we're looking at Kingpin's Pet earlier, and so this one again, if you wanted to if you've got a deck that sort of plays around with the whole extort mechanic, may have a home in there, but beyond that, probably not. Simic Guildgate, so we were looking at the Guildgates. Basilica Guards, 2 and a white, defender with extort, 1/4. So again, I think I'll put it in with the rest of those sort of useful in certain circumstances. Ember Beast, 2 and a red, 3/4. Ember Beast can't attack or block alone. Okay, so there's obviously a restriction there on that, so that's going to sort of set us back a bit, and may obviously be a problem for us. So I don't think that's really got any use in Commander. Sky Games, 1 and a blue for an enchant land aura. So we enchant a land. Enchanted land has tap. Target creature gains flying until end of turn. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So if you've got an unused land, it allows you to basically use that land in some ways apart from mana. Now, is that going to be used in certain decks or use in Commander? I don't think so myself. So again, that would be in the do not use pile. Dinrova Horror. So 4 blue-black creature horror, 4/4. When Dinrova Horror enters the battlefield, return target permanent to its owner's hand, and that player discards a card. Okay, so you've got a creature as well, so you've got a 6 casting cost for a 4/4, and this sort of an interesting ability that will bounce a land, because that's where the blue comes from, if you like, the blue theme, but also force them to discard the black side of the card. So for that particular one, the problem here is that you're on the one hand, it's gonna do it to a single target player, but it's attached to a creature. You could with something else, you could bounce this and replay and re-trigger that ability if you wanted to. So I think in the right deck, that's a strong card there, where you're playing around with re-triggering abilities on there. Dimir key runes. So I did mention that the key runes were particularly useful in obviously the certain color deck that the mana triggers you can be used to create, and also you've got this sort of ability that you can invest blue-black into it, and it becomes a 2/2 blue and black horror artifact creature until end of turn, and it's blockable this and is unblockable this turn. So yeah, that's definitely of use in a blue-black deck where you want to be playing around with that sort of thing. Crowned Ceratox, so trample. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. It's a 4/3 and it costs 3 and a green. So if you're playing around with counters in your EDH deck, you might want to take a look at this, and certainly it's going to be because it's a synergy with that. It's going to be strong in the deck where you've got these counters. You've got lots of creatures out. It's going to suddenly give them trample, basically, or give them trample. It has trample itself as well. So yeah, so definitely at home in that sort of deck. Undercity Plague. So this is our rare. 4 colourless, 2 black for sorcery. And target player loses 1 life, discards a card, then sacrifices a permanent. And the size, so you can cipher this. So you can actually exile the card, encode it on a creature you control, and whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may cast a copy of the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So this is going to sort of repeat itself. So with that one, again, it's one of these things, trying out in the right deck. You want it I think you would want it to synergize with something, so that when you're triggering that loss of life, the discard card, and the sacking of a permanent, there's something else in your deck that exploits that. So we have our foil Sky Games, but we came to the conclusion that the card wasn't particularly good. So let's go in that pile. We've got a swamp, and we have a horror token. Okay, so we're moving on to our next one, which is our Dragon's Maze booster. You can't see the piles off screen, but at the moment we're not really doing too well, which is what I sort of thought. In some ways, opening single packs of stuff, randomly, is not a good thing, but that's really what this series is about. Basically what works, what doesn't in real life when you try this. Okay, so we're going to take a look now at Hasda Snare Squad. So Hasda Snare Squad, I think we've seen these guys before. 2 and a white, 1/4. When Hasda Snare Squad attacks, you may pay 1 white. If you do, tap target creature and opponent controls. So we've got a reusability here. Only works when we attack with this creature, but nonetheless, that would be a, you know, you could use that if you could find a deck to use it in there. You're not super strong. Armored Wolf Rider, 3 colourless, green, white for 4/6. So it's another one of these sort of vanilla creatures. And because there's nothing else we can really get off of this apart from the creature, those tend not to be strong cards at all in EDH. Azorius Cluestone. This is white blue, and so you can either tap it for white or blue, or you can pay white and blue, tap it, sacrifice it, and then draw a card. And we've had a look at these before. So that's obviously very useful in the right colour deck. Hidden Strings. So Hidden Strings, white and blue. You may tap or untap target permanents. Then you may tap or untap another target permanent. And it's got another one with Cipher on it again. So for Hidden Strings, yeah, good card. Yeah, something that certainly would want to think about playing in blue. Ubarside Gatekeepers, 3 and a blue, 3 and a black for a 2/4 creature zombie soldier. When Ubarside Gatekeepers enter the battlefield, if you control 2 or more gates, target creature and opponent controls get -2/-2. Target creature and opponent controls get -2/-2 until end of turn. So that one, it's one of these ones, you know, you're not going to want to definitely try it in black, but what you might want to do is if you had a particular deck that was playing around with gates, you could certainly try it out, but there may be better cards for doing that in your deck. Wake the Reflection. So Wake the Reflections is a 1 white for just to populate, so it's just going to put tokens. So for that, really what you're going to be looking for is a creature that has this as an ability rather than just a straight sorcery, so not a good card. All for the Guilds. So this All for the Guilds thing, mono-coloured creatures can't block this turn, and I think as I mentioned in another card that had this sort of focus on this hate for mono-coloured, that can be quite good in a format or metagame where opponents are playing very strong mono-coloured creature staples for various reasons, and so to have those not to be able to block when maybe you're attacking with an awful lot of stuff is pretty useful utility. So that particular All for the Guilds is going to go on our sort of, yes, we should really probably try this out basically. Battering Krasis. So Battering Krasis is another evolve creature. It's 2 and a green. It's got trample and evolve. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature has greater power or toughness than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on this deck. So it's going to be good in a evolve deck, and it's useful because if you are putting bigger creatures in, then this is constantly going to be triggering, and obviously that trample is going to mean when you attack with it, that damage is going to sort of roll over there. Morgue Burst, 4 colourless, black, red. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Morgue Burst deals damage to target creature or player equal to the power of the card returned this way. So we've got a multicolour card here. It's going to get stuff back from our graveyard. So we've got something nice and juicy in the graveyard. that's got a high power. That's also, as we return it, going to deal damage to a target creature or player. So, you know, in black-red deck that maybe plays around with the graveyard, and any black-red deck, I suppose, where we're after some sort of, you know, burn element or something to remove a target creature or do damage to a player, and we know there's a good possibility we're going to have a powerful creature in our deck, then that's a, you know, good card for us to use in those colours. Maze Sentinel. So Maze Sentinel is in white. It's vigilance. Multicoloured creatures you control have vigilance, and it's 3/6 for a 5 and a white. I don't think that's really strong. You know, even in a real heavy multicoloured deck, it basically just means that your creatures aren't going to tap when they attack. Warped Physique. So Warped Physique, blue-black, instant. Target creature gets plus X minus X until end of turn, where X is a number of cards in your hand. So this sort of conditional card where it's this sort of lopsided pump stroke removal spell. So I always find these very interesting in Magic. And normally, you know, because of that interesting utility, they can be a lot of use. The problem with this is it's this sort of one hit instant on here. So I think to get its full utility, if you were going to use it, it would be in a specific instant in a specific deck. So that's pretty like fringe. Unflinching Courage. 1 green white. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has trample and lifelink. It's enchantment aura. As I've mentioned earlier, you can do some clever things with auras. Is this going to fit into that sort of category? So on this one, so you've got a green white deck, or you know you're playing green white, should I say, and it's going to stay on your creature. That's the main thing when you're considering with these enchantments over, say, like a one pump sorcery spell. This just stays on there. You've got trample and you've got lifelink. So, you know, you've got a big creature. You're going to give it a bit of a buff, but also it's going to have that sort of trample on it, so damage can go through, and you're going to get life off of there. So I definitely would score that high because of that. And yeah, they're definitely in the category of, you know, should try that out in the appropriate coloured deck, basically. Goblin Test Pilot, 1 blue-red for a 0/2 flying. Goblin Test Pilot deals 2 damage to target creature or player chosen at random. So obviously the randomness is going to be an issue here. You don't really know what it's going to do. I mean, sometimes it might be fun to just build an EDH deck that does random stuff. The good thing with this is that that particular 2 damage is repeatable. So yeah, I mean, it might be fun in a certain fringe random commander EDH deck, random damage EDH deck. Savage-born Hydra. So we've got a mythic here, X red green for a 0/0. So we've got to have something in the ability that's going to basically give us some form of toughness, otherwise it's going to die straight away. Double strike, okay, so that already sounds interesting. Savage-born Hydra enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. 1 colourless red-green, put a 1/1 counter on Savage-born Hydra. Activate this ability only any time you could cast a sorcery. So what's happening is that X you pay in the casting cost is what puts those +1/+1 counters on it. And you can also add counters to this particular creature. So lots of different ways this can be used. If you sort of create an evolve deck, it's going to trigger evolve based on the amount of counters you invest in it. Also, you know, the nice thing about this is it's scalable to your mana, and it also has double strike, and the fact that you can just keep adding counters to it, although adding counters to it in an evolved deck after it's been entered the battlefield won't trigger excuse me, further evolve. So just something to remember about that. So yeah, so good strong EDH card in the right deck. Dimir Guildgate enters the battlefield tapped. The interesting thing with the Dragon's Maze is all the Dragon's Maze had gates in them in the land slot, which was very useful for drafting basically. But yeah, Guildgate's a strong card if you don't have any already. And finally, let's move on to the Theros pack. So this is the one which was in the next block. So are we going to get some interesting enchantments or interesting gods? We'll see. So let me just find my cheat sheet for this one. Okay, so Nimbus Naiad, 2 and a blue enchant creature nymph has bestow on it. So for 4 and a blue you can cast this card for its bestow cost. It's an aura spell with the enchant creature. It becomes a creature again if it's not attached to a creature. Has flying, an enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has flying. So these enchant creatures give you lots of utility. The question is whether or not that utility is going to work in a deck. And the problem here is, I think, just the costings. You've got 2 and a blue, and the bestow is 4 and a blue. And okay, the enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has flying, but I don't think it's particularly strong in EDH Commander. Battle-wise Valor, 1 and a white instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and scry for 1. So that one already, I'm thinking instant speed, pump with scry. Yeah, just not reusable. Savage Surge. Okay, so Savage Surge, 1 and a green instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Untap that creature. Same sort of thing. So no, not too good. Applying Unicorn. So this is a artifact creature Unicorn. 1/2. Tap, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. So we have a mana dork, because it's 3 colourless to play this, but it will generate 1 mana of any colour. So this is going to be really useful for fixing mana. So I would say that I definitely think about playing this here. The good thing with artifacts is, of course, they're usable in lots of different decks. Just thinking, so for 3 colourless, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. There are better artifacts that do this. So if you have access to those artifacts, then obviously use those. Because all this does is basically, will give you that colour. It's not like some of the other artifacts we've used which generate specific colours which have additional utility on them. So that is one problem with this. So across the board, this probably isn't going to be that playable if you have access to a larger card pool. If it's the only way you've got to fix mana and you haven't got anything else, then obviously you could give it a go. But compared to other 3 cost artifacts that do similar things, you don't have as much utility. So just watch out for that one. Lagona Band Elder. So for Lagona Band Elder, it's 2 and a white for a 3/2. When Lagona Band Elder enters the battlefield, if you control an enchantment, you gain 3 life. So we have life gain on a 3/2, but you have to control an enchantment. Okay, So I think too many conditions there to be any use on a, you know, not a particularly large creature. Priest of Iros. So Priest of Iros, 1 red for a 1/1, 3 and a white, sacrifice Priest of Iros, destroy target enchantment. No, I don't think so. Fade into Antiquity, 2 and a green, sorcery, enchantment, exile target artifact or enchantment. Okay. So here's the thing. So we for 3 casting costs, 2 and a green, we do get to exile a target artifact to enchantment. So that could be useful if we're trying to completely get rid of someone's soul ring, or a strong artifact, or a bothersome enchantment. That's going to completely take it out of the game, never to return. So yeah, so good card. Again, in the right circumstances. Return Centaur, 3 and a black, 2/4, creature zombie centaur. When Return Centaur enters the battlefield, target creature player puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Okay. So you can target a player. So the question is, whenever I look at cards that basically put 4 cards from the library into the graveyard, I would think, well, that's something in the right deck you would want to be doing to yourself. So you get a 2/4 for 4 on there. I don't know about that one. I think, you know, it's like a lot of this stuff, there's better ways of doing this. Better costed ways of doing that. Griptide, 3 and a blue, instant, put target creature on top of its owner's library. So it's one of these spells where you're sort of bouncing a target creature back onto the library. So you're not backing it back into their hand, you're putting it back on the top of the library. So that means that they've got, you know, the next card they draw, they're drawing that card, and then they've got to play it. So it's sort of one thing better than just simply bouncing a creature on there. So in a blue deck where you're trying to, you know, maybe control the top of a opponent's library for whatever reason, or you're just simply trying to get rid of a threat, then that's useful. The other thing about this is, and probably of more relevance, is that this business of sort of bouncing commanders certain places, because one of the problems is when you kill a commander, it can be recast. It doesn't go to the graveyard unless, or it doesn't stay in the graveyard unless the person that the controller wants it to. So it's quite useful with commanders to be able to bounce them certain places. So you bounce it to the top of the owner's library, put it in the library, put it on the bottom of the library, that sort of stuff. So again, basically just messes around with the whole system on there. So again, something to consider. So if you were playing blue, you might want to have a look at that and see how useful that card would be in a blue deck. Commune with the gods. So green, commune with the gods. Source, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or enchantment card from among them into your hand. Put the rest into the graveyard. So in this one, 2 things going on here. What you're trying to do is play around with the top of your library, get an enchantment card or creature from there, and then stick stuff in the graveyard. So obviously you're going to need stuff that's going to exploit the fact that a lot of those cards are going to end up in the graveyard. So not something you would necessarily want to do unless you had the cards to sort of exploit that thing. Now that it's stronger than Return the Centaur, which I didn't score very highly because of this extra utility on it. So you're not simply just blindly putting 4 cards into the graveyard. And what you're doing is you're filtering to a certain degree, and that's the important thing. Destructive Revelry. So with Destructive Revelry, this is a red-green instant, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Destructive Revelry deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller. So you're going to get rid of all those sort of tasty artifacts or enchantments, but of course it's only targeted at 1, and it also does a bit of damage at the same time there. So yeah, those are things to consider, but again you've sort of got this one hit problem there. Arena Athlete, so 1 and a red, 2/1, heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Arena Athlete, target creature an opponent controls can't block this turn. Not something that I would really want to play. Sealock Monster, 3 and 2 blue, 5/5. Sealock Monster can't attack unless defending player controls an island. 5 and 2 blue, Monstrosity 3. If this creature isn't monstrous, put 3+1/+1 counters on it, and it becomes monstrous. When Sealock Monster becomes monstrous, target land becomes an island in addition to other types. Okay, so with Sealock Monster, there's just too many ifs and buts on this. So no, not something. Anthilus Hesi. Oh, Stygian Hero. So we actually have a legendary creature. Oh, very useful in Commander format. 3 and 2 green for a 4/5 with heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a Thusa citizen hero, up to 3 target lands you control will become 2/2 warrior creatures until end of turn. They're still lands. So with this sort of card, the problem is that you're going to need stuff. The heroic trigger I always find a bit dicey because you're going to have to actually have cards that target that heroic trigger, and I think there's just better ways, better commanders that you can play. Certainly it would be good to set yourself a challenge with this, but I don't think it's something that I would want to really utilize. And then we've got a plains and an advert card. So what I'm going to do now is have a quick look at the top end cards that we pulled. So I'm just going to focus on everything we went through, and there's either the sort of, yes, I really want to play this is a really cool commander card, or yes, I want to really play this in the right deck sort of cards, and I'm not really going to go back through all those either fringe playables or I don't really want to play at all. So to just finish off the video now, I'm just going to review some of the pulls we got. Now bear in mind, we've now opened 6 boosters from various sets, some of which were from the same set, and this really illustrates how randomness is not your friend when trying to build your Commander EDH collection. But it's good to just see what stuff falls into the category of either definitely want to play this, or might want to try this out. It's a strong card and it's going to basically work in some decks. But first up, what I'll do is we'll just do some land artwork first, because I know there's several people that watch these videos like me are interested in the land artwork. So we basically got a little bit of land here that we could use in our deck if we hadn't got this sort of artwork and we just were interested from an aesthetics point of view. So these are all going to be, actually well, that one isn't, but those 3 are Return to Ravnica artwork, and this is the Theros artwork. Then while I'm still on the subject of land, I thought I'd just highlight the dual lands we had. So we had this Hallowed Fountain, which is a land plains island, so that does white and blue, but if we when it enters the battlefield, if we choose not to tap it, then it's going to do us, we're going to have to pay 2 life. And then we had a number of gates. We got a Dimir Guild Gate, Simic Guild Gate, Azorius Guild Gate, another one, and an Orzhov. And as I think I mentioned, these are very prevalent in that particular block, so it would be unusual not to have quite a few of those if you've been in opening packs, or you know, opening boosters as part of an intro pack or whatever. Then we got our sort of piles from our top end cards here. So we got the Humbleback Goliath, which was one of our 2 premium sort of foils that were in those blister packs. We had our Morgue Burst, which returns a target creature from the graveyard, but also deals damage to a target creature or player equal to the power of the card returned this way. Notion Thief, which would make it our advantage when opponents draw cards beyond their first one. Putrefy, which will basically just kills dead artifacts or creatures and they can't be regenerated. We've got a Mana Dork, which also taps for 1 damage, generates green mana. And we've got Boros Charm, great utility, red, white, and we get to choose between dealing 4 damage to target player, player, or giving permanents we control indestructible, or giving a target creature double strike until end of turn. So that's one thing you want with those sort of single hit things, for them to be good, is where they've got that sort of modal thing on them where you can choose. And then we've got all these other good EDH cards, which are, you know, probably going to be playable in certain decks. And like I said, I've put the not so good and the fringe playables to one side. We won't be going back through those. So we've got our Angelic Skirmisher, which was the foil in the other pack, 4 and 2 white. So this will give at the beginning of each combat either First Strike, Vigilance, or Lifelink to creatures that you control, and it's 4/4 with flying. We've got Commune with the Cards, which allows us to mess around with the top 5 cards of our library. Griptide, which allows us to bounce the target creature back to the top of its owner's library. Fade into Antiquity, it allows us to exile an artifact or enchantment. Savage-born Hydra, potentially very large creature with double strike, always good. Unflinching Courage, get to an enchanted creature, give it +2/+2, and it's got trample and lifelink. So with any enchantment pumps, always important to look for those extra things beyond the pumping. Battering Krasis, nice small evolved creature, which is going to trigger as larger creatures come into play. Or for the guilds, stops mono-coloured creatures from blocking. Hidden Strings allows you to tap untap permanents, and also using Cipher you can trigger that effect off of a creature. So we've got a Clue Stone in that sort of 3 colourless spot. Crown Ceratoc, trample, gives each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it trample, so good in getting the counter deck. There's a Dimir Key Rune, so these key runes also produce 2 colours but have this utility of making them become a creature. Dinroba Horror, so 4/4 for 4 on blue-black, but also when it enters the battlefield you get to return a target permanent to its owner's hand, and then also the player discards a card. Profit and Loss, so giving creatures you control +1/+1 to end of turn, or giving creatures your opponents control -1/-1 until end of turn can be very useful. So Lesney, a Clue Stone, another Clue Stone there in that's green-white. Hidden Strings, we had another copy of those. Azorius Clue Stone, white-blue. Ultimate Price, get to destroy a target mono-coloured creature. Get rid of a nasty mono-coloured threat. Sundering Growth. Destroy a target artifact or enchantment and then populate. So again, this illustrates this point with single shot things. They become useful when in addition to one thing they do something else, or the thing that they do, you know, really does it. Like, you know, you get, you know, removal that completely removes the creature. There's no possibility of it regenerating. You know, it exiles a creature, or stuff like this where you're destroying an artifact or enchantment, but also you're getting the ability to populate. So in the right token deck, you know, very strong. You've got sort of 2 for 1 there. Chorus of Might. Until end of turn, target creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control and gains trample. So at home in a heavy creature deck where you've got lots of creatures in play. So I hope that's sort of done 2 things really for you. Is one, to just try and highlight the sort of things to look at when you're trying to evaluate cards for Commander, and how difficult it is to do, and how there's all these clever caveats based on you know what you know, what use you might be putting it to, what deck it's going to be in, what the metagame's like, you know, particularly with things like removal as well. But also beyond that, how it definitely isn't a good idea to sort of randomly open packs, particularly if you don't know what the booster is. Now that's not to say if you do your homework and you know, as the term I've used before, sort of force the hand of chance and maybe pick a particular set which you know is heavily populated with good Commander EDH staples and just really strong cards. That's one thing. But to basically just try and open like a single booster from a certain set, you're basically, you know, on a you know, almost like on a loss by doing that. So I hope that's been informative. Sorry it's been so long, but it does take an awful long time to sort of open 6 packs and try and evaluate them at the same time. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.